Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Ogbanje Joseph. Please subscribe to this channel, share, like, as well as drop a comment on the comment section. So today we're going to be talking about industrial development plan. Industrial development plan. So now, a country's industrial policy is a dynamic tool for stimulating and regulating the industrial development process. It is a blueprint detailing the objectives and strategies for optimally attaining the goals of non-primary production, particularly manufacturing, taking into consideration the resource endowment of the country in terms of labor, land, capital, entrepreneurship, and international goodwill. Okay. Since Nigeria's independence in 1960, different administrations have introduced policies targeted at not only diversifying the country's economy but making industry the engine of economic growth. Some of these policies include the import substitution approach and the indigenization program. At other times, government felt the need to raise the level of intermediate and capital goods produced locally and to promote, the establishment of industries which cater for overseas market in order to earn foreign exchange. Okay, so some of the industrial development plans, can be seen as follow. Number one, industrial development plans during the first development plan. Industrial development plan during the first development plan. Now, however, or now towards the end of the colonial administration, the industrial development plan, okay, gradually tilted towards the introduction of basic processing methods. Now, this was the era of the pioneer oil mills, for palm oil processing, palm kernel and granite crushing, cotton ginning, and then leather tanning, power-driven sawmills, beer brewing, and oil seed milling. Now, it was on the strength of this that the import substitution or resource-based, import substitution or resource-based strategy was adopted under the first National Development Plan. That was between 1962 to 1968, essentially to enable the country import capital goods like machinery, tools, and spare parts, and by so doing, facilitate the assembly of these products within the country while encouraging the manufacture of consumer goods. Now, these import items, okay, now these these imported items were brought in at little or no duty, even at the industries, as the industries were also protected by hard tariffs as infant industries. The essence was to achieve growth in the essence, in the sense of laying a solid and enduring foundation for future expansion, which was considered a prerequisite for Nigeria's evolution towards a self-sustaining economy. To this end, the government was to stimulate the establishment and growth of industries which contribute both directly and materially to economic growth and enable Nigerians to participate and to an ever increasing extent in the ownership, direction, and management of Nigerian industry and trade. Now, in a bid to realize these targets, about 13% of the public investment program, was set aside, to trade and industry with the aim of establishing an integrated iron and steel complex, participating in the establishment of an oil refinery, providing funds for direct participation in industries as the occasion arose, and setting up a development bank that would lend to industries and act as one channel for foreign capital. Government effort, okay, was consistent and in fact began to pay off, especially with the maximum support from the regions that seemed to be competing among themselves. Perhaps it was a remarkable success recorded in the period that led many to describe it as the golden age of Nigeria's industrialization, given that manufacturing as share of GDP rose to 6%, up from 5%, which it was at independence. Now, similarly, from the 150 plants of medium and large scale size in the industrial sector at independence, most of which were actually established in 1950s, the number rose to 330 by 1965, arising from the intensification of the process, okay, of import substitution and the establishment of firms to undertake domestic manufacturing of goods hitherto imported, though still largely dominated by low technology light industries. Okay, however, many argue that the first national development plan did not achieve much, given that the objectives of the policy were not strictly implemented. For instance, under the scheme, industrial estates were to be developed and led out to foreign industrialists at at subsidized rates. But in reality, only very few, in reality, only very few industrial estates, in addition to those already in existence, were built, even as the record of the establishment of cottage industries, were unimpressive. Unfortunately, even the modest achievement that was recorded was undermined by Nigeria's 30-month, fratricidal civil war, which started in 1967, and all of that. Now, from then, attention shifted to prosecuting, a war, to ensure Nigeria's unity. At the same, all the same, many believe that the policy of import substitution which characterized this period often resulted in high import bills and disruptive supply bottlenecks, thereby raising the cost of local manufacturers and further making them to be less competitive, than the imported one. Similarly, given that an important goal of import substitution was to correct the balance of payment disequilibrium by reducing the annual import bills on consumer goods, this was never achieved in the case of Nigeria. Other structural weaknesses of the import substitution include, over-reliance on imported inputs, bias for the production of consumer goods, predominantly internal market orientation for input or for output, over dependence on protection for external competition, which bred inefficiency and market distortions, capital extensive method of production, and over concentration on secondary inputs. Now, what I have said so far, is actually the industrial development plan in Nigeria, and this was actually captured in the first national development plan in the country. It achieved, it achieved to an extent, the goal of actually having that plan, but to an extent too, it did not also achieve, the purpose for which it was actually put together. Thank you very much.